What's up everyone, this is Tav and today we'll be exploring the Even More Instruments mod. Now some of the OG ones will remember that I actually did cover this mod a bit in the past, but we don't talk about that, do we? Anyways, the mod had essentially a complete rewrite this update, so it is worth covering again. Now, needless to say, this mod adds instruments into the game. I know, crazy. But they are specifically an extension of Genshin instruments, which means they support all the sugarcoating that they do, such as multiplayer, MIDI support, and nice customization abilities. The mod also has composition abilities specifically implemented using the looper, which we will explore later as well. Now, I've categorized the instruments for us into a few sections, so it'll be nice and easy for us to go through each, starting with the wind instruments, where we have the trombone and the saxophone. Now these two bad boys are actually modeled and I think they look kinda great. I think I did a pretty good job on them. And they sound kinda nice, at least the trombone does. The saxophone, questionable at best. The next set of instruments are Asian instruments, and these include the shamisen with the bachi, the pipa, and the koto. Now there are a few things of note here. Firstly, to play the shamisen you need to have a bachi, otherwise it simply won't work, you won't be able to use it. Secondly, with the pipa you can actually cycle which version of the pipa you're playing. That is customizable via both the pipa options right here, either regular or tremolo, or if you cycle with right alt. Same thing. Now the next set of instruments are accessory instruments, and these are simply instruments that require the usage of an accessory. And well, we've already reviewed the shamisen with the bachi, but we also have the violin and the violin bow. And while you play with the instrument accessories, they too get damaged. So if I'll play some note, you can see that it took some damage. But this shouldn't really bother you because the durability taken is extremely low compared to the amount of durability you have there. And similarly to the pipa, you have two versions of the violin, that being half note and full note, which you can also cycle using right alt. This also works if you have a MIDI pedal. The next instrument is a bit of a loner, but it's the guitar. The next set of instruments are block instruments, and well, we've already seen the koto, but we also have here the keyboard. And what's special about the keyboard is that you can actually put it on a stand, and it looks really cool. And if you don't want to put it on a stand, then you can just put it on the floor as a 2x2 block. Now the next set of instruments is actually a bit weird because these are note block instruments. And note block instruments are unique because you make them out of literal note blocks and they sound like literal note blocks. And well, this is just one type of note block instrument, but you can actually have as many as I think 16 because of the base block that you put under the note block while you craft the item. In fact, if you go to the recipe book and look for note block instruments, then you can see every single combination you can make in order to craft a note block instrument. Now, it is worth mentioning that note block instruments are 3x8 instruments, unlike the regular 3x7 ones. And along with the extra column, you also have an additional column within your keyboard. This, combined with the fact that you have literal accidentals within your layout, makes it so that you can't play regular keyboard shit here, but rather unique ones to this instrument. Also, because of how Minecraft works, you can't really change the pitch of the instrument. Now, last thing I should note is that every instrument, well, besides these instruments, can be transposed. So, for instance, if we grab the trombone, I can press shift to transpose all the notes one step up. And the reverse is applied if I press left alt, which transposes the instrument one pitch down. Now this is customizable by going to your control settings and scrolling down to Instruments GUI, where you can find the transposition keys. And while we've covered what is currently all the instruments in the mod, new ones do get dropped at random every so often, so do keep an eye out for that. Also, you can customize your instruments with some Specy themes. They all look pretty cool and you might want to check them out. And now we're finally moving to the more juicy part of the mod, the looper. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the concept of a real-life looper, it's essentially a machine that will record any sound you produce and then play it back as overlays in loops in return. Quite a simple concept, really. So this type of looper only accepts one channel, and to actually play it, we will need a record. Once we get hold of one, we'll need any instrument of our liking, insert the empty record, and right-click the instrument. When both an instrument and a looper are paired together, you can see at the top of your screen a new record button, and when you press it, you will, in fact, begin recording. And so from the second I start pressing any button, and the second I stop the recording will loop. Now you have a few things you can do in this case. Firstly, I can right-click to stop the recording, and I can shift right-click to eject the disk and have a new burned record. And you can insert this burned record in any other looper you see fit. You can also combine a burned record together with an empty record to clone the same record. Also, do not be confused, as records are not the same as disks, and disks are not the same as records. These two things are completely unrelated and serve a different purpose. Now, it should be noted that every customization you apply to any instrument will also reflect in the looper itself. So for instance, if I lower the instrument volume and record anything, this volume will be kept at the looper, and the volume of the instrument itself will be kept as itself. The same is also true for the pitch of an instrument. This is also applied to an instrument like the zither, where you have two instances of sound and you can switch between them while recording. Same with the violin and the pipa. For the keen eye, you may have also noticed that the sounds I play are also reflected in my instrument screen. If this is something you don't like, you can simply disable it by going to Shared Instrument Screen and turning it off. Lastly, the record button is actually bound to a key in your keyboard, and the default one is the key left to the number 1. If you want to change this, you can go to your control settings and go down to the Even More Instruments key maps, where you can see the record key map. And basics out of the way, let me enlighten you with some demonstrations. Wondering, well, how can I pair an instrument block like the keyboard to a looper if, well, I can't right-click it? And the answer is the looper wireless adapter. With this, all we simply have to do is shift right-click the both of them, and bam, we have ourselves a record button. This thing also has another usage, which I'll also show you later. Another important thing to note is that the looper has a note cap, much like how a chest has an item cap. Its capacity is, however, controlled by this game rule, which is by default set to 255. If you're a server owner and you fear griefers, you can set this value to be lower, because let me tell you, these things can take up space. Or you can disable the cap completely by setting the value to -1. Now, I've shown you that you can burn records yourselves. You can also find pre-burned records. These records are scattered across your Minecraft worlds, and you might just be able to find them. Go give them a listen when the chance comes by, because, well, I'm the recorder of these tracks. Their distribution is shown on screen right now. Do know, however, that their drop rate is quite low, at about 5%. Also, if you look behind the looper, there's one side that we haven't really covered yet. This is the looping toggle. It determines whether the looper will not be looping or will be looping. And if you try to play anything while the looper is not looping, you will see that it will indeed just pause the recording and not loop. This is contrary, of course, to the looping state. Now you might just be wondering, okay, Steph, what the fuck do I need? Why the heck do I need this feature? Isn't the whole point of a looper to be looping? Well, that is true, unless I tell you that the looper is actually redstone activated. If, for instance, I were to place a button, you can see that the looper will start playing, and when I press the button again, the looper will stop. This is the default mode. The other mode is activated when the looper is not looping. And now if I press the button, well, it's actually too short for me to show you. And now if I press the button, while the looper is playing, it will actually reset it. To remind you how it is when the looper is looping, it will basically just pause it. Now again, why the heck would this still be useful? Well, let me welcome you to my sweet little home where, whoa, did you see that? We actually have a ring bell. Let me do that again. Very fancy. How this is actually done is simply by wiring a redstone dust into a looper with a looping off state. That is, every time I press the button, this ring bell is sound. Huge shout out to Emerald310, by the way, who suggested this whole mechanism to begin with. And if you're wondering how I got this recording, I basically mashed my keyboard against the bell instrument. Now remember when I said, so this type of looper only accepts one channel, and that this thing also has another usage? Well, let me introduce you to sound layering. It's gonna be really cool, trust me. Let us place the first looper, and I'll be using a MIDI keyboard to record my playings. If you don't have one of these, you can always use your computer keyboard. So I'll play the first track, and whatever will it be. And now I'll place an overlaying track using the cuto. Whoopsie, I forgot to press stop in the correct time, and now look at that, everything is out of sync. And the way to fix this is actually pretty simple. You see, previously we've used a looper wireless adapter to connect an instrument block into a looper, but now what we'll do is pair a looper to a looper. What we've done just now is sync the two loopers. Basically, what this did is set the ending time for both these loopers to be the exact same time, and the current time also to be the exact same time. And so when I'll play these two and sync them, you can see that it works just like magic. And we can have even more fun with this, so let's add another looper to the mix. So as you can see, we've basically used here a bunch of loopers to create one huge track. And this is the power of layering. And we can also take this another step further. Remember, loopers are redstone activated. So if I'll connect all these loopers into one redstone input, you can see that all of them will now activate at the same time. But wait, we can take this one step further. We can basically group looper channels using something like the target block. So for instance, if I want these two loopers to be one channel, I can place a target block to both of these, connect them to redstone, and now only these two loopers will get the redstone input. Now see this. And I can do the same for the rest of these three. So now we have channel control. So I hope I demonstrated to you just how cool this feature is. Also, the looper has a comparator output for whether it is playing or not playing. Now I want to show you one last thing, and that is the /emirecord command. This command will let you easily share records between players from this world and others. You see, if I'll hold a record and type /emirecord save, well, you can guess what it does. It saves the record. But where to? Actually, in your world files. So, for instance, let me save this record as backtrack. Pressing enter, you can see that the record has successfully saved. Now then, where can I find it? Well, here is this world's directory. In here, we'll go to generated, Minecraft, even more instruments, records, and there you go, we have our backtrack right here. And if you fancy what's inside, it's basically just a bunch of metadata describing every single note in your record. And well, since this is a file, you can actually share it around with your friends too. Or, you know, just generally move it between worlds. Now then, how do I load this track? Well, still using the emirecord command, only this time we will burn it. And it will give us the option to burn the backtrack we've just created. And running this command, you can see that our record has now become a burned record. Now I just want to show you, this is how the regular record data looks like. And what's exactly different with this burned record? Well, let's run the data command again, and you can see that our record is significantly shorter in length. In fact, it only saves our burned media tag, so this is very much space efficient. Now say we for some reason no longer want the backtrack to be present, well, we have the remove command and we can simply enter our backtrack. So just to sum up, emirecord is basically there for if you want to mass distribute a record or you just want to share it. Now basically anyone on the server can use the emirecord command, but only those with administrative permissions on the server, aka OPs, can use the remove and save commands. And if you're a Datapack maker and you want to embed records into your pack, you can do so under the Even More Instruments directory and records. And here you can place all records to your heart's content. We finally reached the end. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. It took me ages to compile. This is why. It took me ages to compile it together. And I also want to thank you all for downloading my mods like crazy. Like, I thank you. And on a personal note, things are really tight for me IRL, so I may be less available online. This means that videos and updates will be delayed. And so I wanna thank my mother and my friends for— I'm just kidding, skedaddle. See ya!